Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Teskey, and today I am joined once again by Josh MacDuff from Kinney Pike Insurance in Rutland, also Mountain Girl Cannabis. Josh, thanks for coming back on, man.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. Thanks for having me.
Now, the reason I got you on, I'm sure you've put this together, but for anyone watching, I've got a lot of questions about insurance. And since you are co-owner of a cannabis company and you work for an insurance company, I thought you'd be my guy here. So
Yeah, for
let's
sure.
let's dive into this. And I want to say this right now, Josh, I am not excited to talk about insurance. No offense.
Yeah. No. Unfortunately, I watched William Reed's little thing here, and he had, confetti and stuff. I could have tried to make it a little more exciting, but I didn't plan for that.
I'll let it slide this time. Um, now, I guess we should just sort of start. We should probably walk through the whole process from what it's like when a cannabis potential client walks through your door to the whole setting them up with the appropriate amounts of insurance. So let's just, how do you intake a cannabis client when they approach your company?
Yeah. So I think I do things a little bit differently than what I've experienced in the marketplace when it comes to cannabis. And I say that with, kind of, I don't feel good about that, and what I've experienced so far is folks come to me most often right out of the gates because I've got some great centers of influence who are referring my name at this point. But the ones that have already spoken to, say, maybe their homeowner's carrier or somebody that they know that's an insurance agent, they're kind of getting I think lesser treatment, and they're basically being sent a 15-page application that's blanket to their industry, cultivators, manufacturers alike, and saying, fill this out and I'll see what I can do to get you a quote. When I speak to cannabis prospective businesses, I actually schedule a call. We'll have a 15-minute conversation, and I'm filling out that application as I'm speaking to them. So I'm getting to know, what license type they're going for, what their needs are, what their scale is in size and budget, and kind of asking all the specific questions to get a quote for them.
So kind of like what I do before I do my interviews, I get a little feeling out process.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm basically interviewing them, and most people have been receptive to that. Some have been like, "Well, why do you why do you need to know this?" Or I have no clue about that. And I get that. It's been an invasive process for me on the retail side. Going for a license between banking, insurance, just the general application with the CCB that people have their guard up, and I fully respect that.
Are you allowed to insure your own cannabis company?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can. In my case, I've done all the legwork to get a quote, but I'll probably assign it to one of my friends or a coworker here, so I don't get paid. I mean, it's not enough to move the needle, but I just avoid any conflicts. I'll just assign it to a friend.
Sure. I mean, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Now, what types of accounts have approached you, like different tiered cultivation? Have you been approached by a lot of different license types?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I just took a quick inventory this past week on how many applications I've processed since April, realistically. And I'm up over, I want to say 110 of applications on my own. So
Damn.
the group that we have here at Kinney Pike are now a one digital company. I've kind of hand selected a few service team members to help me process these. There's no way I would be able to do it without them.
I
So,
was gonna say, yeah, that's a
yeah,
lot.
I'm the one guy at my agency that's selling cannabis insurance. And of those 115, I would say probably 70% are tier one cultivators, indoor, outdoor mixed, what have you. And then, the remaining 30 are retailers, manufacturers, and, we already had some on the books that were, maybe in the hemp space as processors, and now they're
Sure.
they're going into the cannabis adult use space.
So you already had some of these clients maybe under your belt.
Yeah, so I've been active in the insurance industry on the cannabis side since the Farm Bill passed, and really started hitting the ground in 2019 and getting my name out there, and building referral sources and things of that nature since then.
seems like you might have paid it forward pretty well here.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. I hope that people recognize that, and
Well, I sent a couple people at you, not not specifically to you, but I was like, here's a couple guys I know. Good Harbor, I know. I
yeah,
talked to Lewis there at Nikan. He seemed like a
sure,
nice guy. Um,
sure.
I would like you to sort of walk us through the products that you offer your clients and maybe talk about them like you're talking to an idiot who doesn't know the first god. All I know about is insurance is that it's a real word and like you have to have it. So
Yeah,
please
yes,
walk us through that, sir, if you wouldn't mind.
sure. So I'll take it right at out of the gates with what the Cannabis Control Board requires, right? And in their definitions, and I haven't looked at it in a while, so this would be me paraphrasing it, is reasonably adequate insurance. What does that mean, right? I mean,
What does that
so
mean? That's why I got you,
exactly.
Josh.
Exactly. So what I'm recommending right at, immediately is, if you're a cultivator or you're a manufacturer or you're somebody who's going to have a product that's actually manipulating the product in any way, shape, or form, has any control over what goes to the consumer, out of the gates, you need product liability insurance. Of the two liability coverages, that's the more expensive, of course, but to me, that's your largest exposure is, somebody consumes a product with your label on it or a product that you manufactured, they're going to, put in a claim of bodily injury towards that business. So right out of the gates, product liability, I would, as a retailer, I wouldn't purchase somebody's products and put them on my shelf without proof of product liability insurance. As a retailer, I don't have any kind of control over the the process. I'm really just taking, other than the storage, I'm taking things as given to me and presenting them to the customer. So, from my standpoint, as a proper risk transfer, I'm making sure that all of my suppliers have product liability insurance coverage in the event that somebody does put in a claim against me for a product that they bought off of me.
Now let me interrupt you just for a second. What if you're white labeling products for someone else? How does that work in the liability chain?
Yep. Yeah, so I would still again have product liability because the white label, you're taking raw materials and you're putting them together and then, giving them. So if I was the person who is getting the product white labeled for me, I would request a certificate of insurance saying from the manufacturer saying, I want proof that you've got product liability coverage. And
Okay.
from the manufacturer, to the person that who's supplying them with, distillate or, flour or whatever for the manufacturing process, I would do the same. I would say, hey,
Sure.
XYZ cultivator, I need proof that you've got product coverage. The one benefit of a highly regulated market is that you can trace and track components, right? So every manufacturer who's buying bulk flour or bulk distillate or whatever, they've got traceability to every product that they're putting on the shelf. They know whose product has gone into that, so they can
Sure.
start tracing back origins and causes of loss and
Right.
claims
Because
of that.
I know like at least with alcohol, like if someone comes into the bar and I overserve them, they can sue everyone right on up the chain.
Yeah,
The bartender, the manager, the owners, the
right.
other co-workers that are there.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it becomes the battle of the deepest pockets, right?
Hmm,
So, being in this industry, I've seen liquor liability claims and,
I bet.
I've seen claims come in where, an insured a bar or even actually I'd say a restaurant has served alcohol to somebody early in the day. That person left fully capable to leave, went to a party, this, that, and the other, got into an accident, and
Oh,
the restaurant still paid the claim. Again,
wow.
battle of the deepest pockets, right?
No shit.
You can go after the guy who caused the accident, the drunken driving accident, and if he doesn't have either A, adequate insurance, or B, any insurance, you're
Yeah.
just going up the chain. Um,
Hmm. Now you said,
same concept here.
well, you said, okay, so you said there's two types of liability and product liability is the most expensive. What is the other type of liability?
The other is general liability. And I've had people who, again, for budget reasons or what have you, have purchased just general liability. And to me, for a cultivator, you don't have much of an exposure. So general liability is slips, trips, and falls on the premise. Certain aspects like that where, it's not like the cultivators inviting people to their grow space to do a walkthrough or visit. It's kind of highly guarded and secured in this from the standpoint of you're not really inviting people out for a visit. Now, on the
Oh,
flip side, as a retailer, to me, general liability is the most important because I'm having X amount of people walking in and out of my storefront throughout the day. They could conceivably have a slip, trip, or fall. So when you look at your premium breakdowns, for a cultivator, general liability is inexpensive. It's probably under $1,000 a year. For me, that's more expensive than the product liability because I'm having contractual agreements with my suppliers. They're really assuming the product risk. I'm assuming the general premise liability risk as a retailer who's going to have high traffic coming in and out every day. Vermont has crazy winters. There's snow. There's so many things that expose you to somebody slipping and hurting themselves on your property.
mm. And now we are looking at, I know a couple guys here in Vermont are pushing towards this thing where we could have agritourism, sort of like
Yeah,
where exactly what you described, where they do have people out to their farm, they
right.
give them tours. So
Yep.
would they then want to consider, a different
Yeah.
type of liability?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I recommend you buy all of the liability you can purchase, general and premise liability. But if I was to say day one, you have to go live with insurance and you can only afford one or the other for a cultivator, you're probably going to go with your product liability. Now, some people again are opting for the cheapest avenue. Just again, the CCB is not really they're not saying one way or the other that you have to have product or general. They just say adequate insurance.
And I want to stop you right there because I feel like at the beginning they said, "Hey, you need to have $1 million of liability or whatever they were saying," and then, like you said, it sort of changed to a commercially appropriate or whatever their
I,
language was.
yeah, I forget what the language is.
Yeah, but doesn't that seem vague? And honestly, especially in a market where nobody really knows
Right.
how much coverage you need, it seemed to me like maybe that was setting up a situation where people don't really know how much insurance is might be right for their business.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And again, that's where people like us come into play and we explain the process. I mean, the way that this piece works is that I have to separate, in most cases, the general liability and the product liability. So I present both and explain to them my recommendations on what they would do, and kind of the rest is up to them. You can't force them to buy any one product or coverage, but you can inform them. And I can feel good about if you've sat down and talked to me about your insurance needs, I've been clear to you what the CCB says and what I recommend. And that's why for good reasons you can't just go out and buy a policy for your cannabis business without talking to a licensed agent.
Is that part of the, like, to get insurance? You have to talk to a licensed agent. Is there any way around that?
There's every day there's new online places, like you could
Uh,
go out and buy your home or your auto now online without, through Progressive or whoever, without
Go to
speaking
the
to anybody.
general and save some time.
Hey, the general, I mean, they're doing it right. They've got, I think, Charles Barkley singing or Shaq singing for
Jack,
them in their
yep.
commercial. But yeah, I mean, instead of paying me commission, they pay Shaq for advertisement. It is what it is. But no, I mean, hey, you can do that stuff. And I haven't seen anybody that's successfully bought a liability policy on cannabis online without any. It is, it's too technical, right? It's not, you know, you I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it myself. And
I've read through some of the language and some policies, and I'm like, nah, I don't
yeah,
trust myself to. It's
right.
jargon. It might as well. Some of that stuff might as well be written in Greek, as far
Yeah,
as I'm concerned.
yeah, it is jargon. And even for me to tell you that I could sit down and tell you the intent or the goal of every exclusion on an insurance policy, I would be lying to you because specifically in the cannabis industry, there's stuff out there that, it's just a subpar industry. You're not working with a Liberty Mutual, you're not working with a Vermont Mutual, or Maine Mutual to get your products where you feel, I don't know, as good as you can feel about buying an insurance policy. You're working with, what's called surplus lines carriers they're not subject to the same state level mandates with the Department of Insurance and Banking that those carriers are, like the
No
Liberty
shit.
Mutuals of the world. Yeah. So they can do what they want on an insurance policy. And we just kind of hope and pray that, you know, we're giving you coverage that's going to respond in time of need.
Have you guys looked at other states with legalization to sort of build a model for how you might do it here in Vermont?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously done my research, and being so close to Massachusetts, we've even seen, accounts in those states and written some, and they're in the same, everybody's kind of in the same boat, I would say.
You have clients in Massachusetts.
We have, I don't know if active still, but we have historically. And it's one of those things where the insurance companies are going to put their kind of efforts into the places where they generate the most opportunity. So,
Right.
You're probably going to have more flexibility on insurance policies and products in California, just based on the law of numbers, right? The small cultivator in California is bigger than our largest cultivators here.
Sure.
So they're generating premium dollars that we're just not able to generate in Vermont. So you might get some better, products over there, or more favorable. I can't even negotiate premiums with an insurance company here, on cannabis. It's whatever I'm given is what I've got,
Are
so
you normally able to negotiate premiums?
you can make a case. I mean, I can't say I need this right? I can say, but carriers work with credits. So, they file a set amount of credits that they can apply to any given account in a state. And, then I can say, hey, this is where you're priced based on X, Y, and Z variables. I think you should be priced here, whether they like it or not. That's up to them. But
Sure.
yeah.
Sorry, I had a little whiny banana man there for a minute.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do you guys ever turn anybody away? Is there any sort of situations where you might say, no, we're actually not going to insure you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've turned people away. I don't try to make a habit of it. But if I feel like I just can't help them, I would never string them along. And I've had people who, may or may not, be fully honest with me, and
Turn the AC on.
uh,
Sorry.
that's all right.
It's fucking hot in here.
I've had people who I've
Thank you.
felt have been honest or not honest with me, and I've made a personal decision to kind of not work with them.
So you have the ability to make that judgment call, like, hey, we're not going to, or give you a chance.
Yeah. I mean, I think in with, as this, submission flow and workflow starts to tick up, we're seeing so much activity that I do have to be a bit more selective. Um, but again, I don't ever want to make a habit of turning people away, because I do feel like they're underserved outside of, and maybe that's silly. I don't know, but I feel like they're not necessarily going to get the attention that they deserve if they go elsewhere.
Sure. And there you go.
He
And
landed
so
on his feet, right?
he did. He always does. You said you guys have offices all over Vermont. Could you tell us some of your locations, please?
Yeah, so our biggest locations are right here in Rutland. We've got Williston, Vermont, and White River Junction are our three largest offices, and then we've got offices in St. Albans, and otherwise.
And how many employees do you think you got total throughout the state?
So the Kinney Pike employees, we're at about 65.
65.
Yep. And
And
again,
so,
we're now part of a company, One Digital. As of November of last year, we merged with. They're largely a benefits company, so they do health, wellness, 401k, and HR services. Um, and we've got now part of the One Digital team. We're over 3,500
oh,
employees countrywide. Yeah.
okay, cool. Now I wanted to ask you sort of how this is going to tie in with the banking, and I don't know how much we could talk about banking, but these are the two big issues.
Hmm.
Although before we do that, actually, I forgot. I have one question. I was curious if you could maybe tell us about sort of the rates that people might be looking at for different license types. I don't know if that's something you could
Yeah.
break down here, but people would love to know about that.
Yeah, no, I think that's possible. I've done so many of these that I can really name it off.
Great.
So and then the other one piece that I did want to touch upon is workers' comp insurance.
Yeah, please.
So
And if I missed anything, please fill us in, Josh.
yeah, no, so out of the gates, what the CCB wants is that, if that you've got liability coverage. Again, they're vague on what liability you need. I'm telling you, you should have product and general liability. Um, and then workers' comp insurance if you have employees. Now, W-2 employees, so staff members, part of your organization that are getting a paycheck from you. I will say that some people try to get creative in using people as contractors, 1099s, where they say you're not an employee. But I just want to throw out there, if you are hiring a contractor and their sole contract is working with you, the Department of Labor calls that an employee. So you
Can I
need
tell you
workers'
why
comp
people tried
coverage.
to do that? I believe people tried to do that because of this home occupancy deal with the fire marshal. They said if you have more than one employee, then you're going to have. There's something weird that happens there, and that
Yeah,
is, I believe, the reason why they've switched to making them subcontracted. Then the
yeah.
fire marshal doesn't have to do an inspection or a walkthrough of your house or something like that. Is what I'm
Sure.
hearing.
It happened, but even it happens even outside of the cannabis industry. People say, "Oh no, they're contractors," and it's like, well, if you're the only contract of this type of work,
But
they're employees,
right,
and
aren't those people
um,
are still doing work for you? You've paid them money to do work for you.
e- exclusively for you,
Yeah. Okay. So
and that I only say that because I want to protect the business. It may sound like I'm trying to upsell you an insurance policy, but at the end of the day, if that contractor gets hurt while they're performing work for you, you don't carry workers' comp insurance. They have a pretty darn good case against you, for injuries and lost time and and all of that. So try to do things the right way if you can. I mean, I understand a lot of people are bootstrapping their ventures, and nobody, to my knowledge, has made a single penny in this cannabis industry yet. So,
we're all waiting.
we're
Everyone's waiting.
everybody's waiting. So I fully respect and appreciate the position that people are in. I'm in the same boat myself, but the second I make a job offer with a start date, I will have workers' comp insurance in place. And honestly, it's pretty affordable. But kind of to get back to your question on the premium dollars.
Yes, please.
So general liability roughly is about $900 a year for your typical cultivator, tier one through really tier five, depending on what your anticipated
So that general
revenues
liability
are.
is going to look about the same no matter what tier you're at.
Yeah, and more
Okay.
specifically, and where I have a problem with this, so does the product liability. So,
Really?
yeah. So basically, for a cultivator, product liability, once you factor in taxes and fees, $3,075 a year is the most competitive that I'm seeing out in the marketplace, and that's rated on a per $1,000 rate in sales. Now it falls under minimum premium, roughly up to $750,000 in anticipated revenue. So that means the very bare bones minimum that you're going to pay for that insurance policy is $3,075 a year, up to $750,000 in sales. So if you're selling $25,000 a year on a tier one, or you're selling $500,000 on a tier two or three, you're paying $3,075 a year.
Hmm. Huh.
Great for the tier two or three, unfortunate for the tier one who's
Yeah, wow.
clearly on a more restricted budget.
I thought that would scale.
It does beyond $750,000 and it starts to go up in premium,
But
but
in a state this small, I mean, that's big like,
I think I've written one policy that anticipates more than minimum premium and revenue.
and
At
when you go on anticipated sales, is that just a number you're taking from your client?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it does get audited after the policy term. So if
Sure.
if if you're rated on $1 million and your premium is say $4,500 a year because you're beyond that minimum territory and you only did 500,000, and so then it goes down to that 3,075, you would get returned premium.
Oh,
But you're never going to get returned premium on a minimum premium policy, that's the bare bones minimum you're going to pay. So, like I said, so I've issued, like actually issued policies for, I'd say about 30 cultivators so far that actually have insurance with me. Um, since they've got, basically what's happening is they're getting licensed and they have 15 days to prove banking and
Right.
insurance.
Right.
So,
Does
every
that seem like
Wednesday,
does that seem like a fair timeline? That seemed quick to me.
it's a fair timeline. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, I can turn around your insurance policies. I can have you a binder for insurance showing that we've put coverage in place as long as you get me your signed paperwork within 48 business hours.
Really.
So
It seemed like the
yeah,
banking though has been taking a lot longer.
well, the banking is yeah, especially now. And I know it's probably a good segue into banking, but
Well, I'd like to finish out maybe if you could do some more of the premiums for maybe manufacturers or
yeah,
some of that kind of stuff, retailers, and
yeah.
then
So
we'll do the banking.
I'd say the cultivators, manufacturers, and wholesalers kind of all fall into that similar premium pattern.
Cool.
Retailers, your general liability does again get a little bit pricier based on based on your again your revenues. So I think for your average retailer for general, meaning the premise liability, you're probably looking at about $2,000 a year for that, and then your product liability you can again get for right around $2,000 a year.
Hmm.
I would say that kind of scales to say about $1 million in revenue. So once you get beyond that, it obviously goes up a bit more.
Nice.
But so you could get your liability portion for your retail license for $4,000+ a year, give or take.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and about the same for for your cultivators if you go with the product and general liability as well.
Hmm.
A
Well,
little
and
bit
even
less.
with the transportation, have you guys looked at that angle? Because I know that's something the CCB is super worried about. Like, I had a guy tell me he's going to have to hire a third party security team to drive his edibles literally across the road where you can see the dispensary from his manufacturing shop window. Have you
Wow.
looked at the transportation angle at all?
Honestly, we haven't seen anybody who has requested coverage for any kind of transportation exposure. But if you are doing transport or goods in transit and you're on your personal auto policy, I can tell you your personal auto company is not going to like that. So you should probably
Oh,
give us a call.
and I've
Again,
also heard that same thing about homeowners insurance for people that want to
yeah,
grow inside. I had a guy tell me that his homeowners insurance might actually drop him when they
yeah.
find out that he's licensed to grow cannabis.
They effectively will. So
Damn.
especially in the home, if you're doing it in the home, even I have troubles. I can tell you, I can't find you a homeowner's policy if you're growing in your home.
Damn.
Um, I've helped people out with homeowners policies if they're growing, um, doing an outdoor plot or they've got a detached structure and they've got an indoor grow, but it's on a detached structure. We have a homeowner's policy that can help for that. But if you're growing it in the home, I've turned over every stone I can. I just can't find an
What's
option.
the difference between growing in your home and growing in a detached structure?
I think your exposure to if you're looking at your total loss exposure. So if you're growing in the
Uh,
home, you're growing in a higher value, generally property limit. You've got your contents coverage. You've got people living in there. So you've got the possibility that if something happens and there's a power surge and it catches
okay,
fire.
so there's some fire
Yeah.
kind of warning in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So, that's just my perspective. And then on a detached structure you've got the loss of the structure itself, but generally it's not as finished and furnished as a home.
Okay.
And
What about the manufacturing labs? Because I know they often deal with solvents and things that are combustible. Is that going to be an extra cost for insurance?
so yeah, I mean their premiums are tend to drive a bit higher, and a lot of the folks that have extraction facilities and things like that, they own the property, they've bought the property. Not a ton of people are leasing to those type of facilities for that reason. So you want to insure those properties, right? Because those do present a higher risk of fire exposure. Um,
Yeah, my homie
you
said
know,
they have to have a locked cabinet to keep all of their anything combustible inside of that.
yeah, Yeah, I've even seen if you're doing like ethanol based extraction where they actually have to fully separate the equipment, in kind of like with like spark proof lighting and all sorts of
Oh shit.
enclosures, keeping that fully separated from the rest of the operation. Every carrier has different, insurance carrier has different requirements as far as what's acceptable and what's not. But yeah, solvent-based extraction and even sometimes CO2 extraction can be, a little bit more challenging and costly to ensure the overall exposure.
Yeah, anything that goes boom seems like it would.
Right,
And I've
right.
seen a couple of fireballs with my homies just doing
Yeah.
extractions in a trailer back in Winterville, and that could
And
certainly burn down a house, no problem.
yeah, and one other thing that I would recommend that manufacturers, processors look at is a coverage called care, custody, and control, because they're taking in a lot of products of others, and they should be ensuring that when once it hits their dock, because um, this cultivator might be sending 50 pounds of biomass to a processor, and it's going to sit in a warehouse for however long until it's processed and turned into the finished product. And if I'm that cultivator, I want to make sure that, hey, my if this place goes boom, that you're gonna recoup me for my value, my wholesale
Oh, that's a
value of
great
that
point.
product.
That's a great
So
point there.
that's something that, I mean, a lot of people are overlooking, and I've seen it in the hemp space as well as here. People are overlooking that exposure, and as a cultivator, I would be asking those questions.
I overlooked it until just now. So, you know.
Well,
All
you
right.
dreaded talking to me, Caleb, so I get it.
No, I like talking to you. It's just the topic that I don't like. You're a perfectly pleasant human being. It's just we got to talk about insurance. Like, I wish
I
we
hear
could
you,
talk
man.
about something more fun.
Hey, I
Like
have to
like
wake
who
up
does
every
your
day and
hair,
sell
dude?
it.
Like your hair looks fantastic. I got to
That
talk to that guy.
that's all me, man.
That's all you, Jesus.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you're gonna cut my hair when I come down there.
I love
Um,
it.
let's do the banking, man. This is the last piece I got, and then I'm out of notes. I'm gonna throw my notes over there. But
Cool.
you mentioned maybe you had a connection with the bank. I know I'm not sure how much you care to talk about, but we really love to hear whatever you got, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't obviously go into specific details, but I do have a history in banking. I actually was a branch manager for a local credit union in Vermont. And I have friends who are in similar positions at various credit unions in the state. And banking's been a pain point, but I guess what I would say to people who are struggling with banking, hang tight. There are other credit unions out there that are doing diligence and trying to find capacity or an ability to work with cannabis businesses. So I know that doesn't help anybody in the immediate future, but I do know, I mean, I've had meetings with another credit union who I obviously can't name at this point, but they've had exploratory conversations with
Well,
me as.
you were called in as sort of a consultant to this unnamed credit agency or credit union, right? Like,
Yeah,
what,
yeah. I mean, yeah, they, again, people that I know, and people that know that I've got an affinity for the cannabis industry. I work closely with them, and obviously am starting my own, business. So, I think they just had questions. I can kind of, I'm in some ways, in very small ways, a bridge between the two worlds, in that, I understand banking, I understand compliance, and particularly what credit unions have to kind of report to when it comes to the NCUA. And then I also understand cannabis and running a cannabis business and working with cannabis businesses and what I'm seeing out in the marketplace when as it pertains to cannabis businesses. So yeah, it was flattering, but more than anything, it's I'm just hopeful that in any way I can help kind of move the banking piece forward, even if it's just an inch, for the businesses who are struggling with getting bank accounts.
who do you guys bank with, if you don't mind me asking?
So we were one of the lucky ones, I suppose, that was able to set up an account with VSECU before they put a pause on things. And I hear where their position is. I think it was so for credit unions and business accounts in general, things can be tedious because there are caps on kind of revenue dollars that they can generate from businesses versus personal bank accounts, that's like a broad strokes generalization. So that's not just cannabis. That's like, so as far as credit unions go, they have to kind of closely monitor what businesses they do, work with, and the scale, the size of their kind of business portfolio, and then add to that the federal aspect of cannabis.
This FinCEN kind of regulation.
Yeah, so then on top of it, right, these, most of these folks are federally chartered, credit unions, so they report or kind of are protected by federal, kind of entities in the banking world. So they have to kind of tread lightly on the amount of bank accounts that they can open, in the cannabis industry because of that. And way quicker than probably anticipated, the SECU hit that mark, and it
I
was
was gonna
because they're.
say they recently announced they're gonna stop taking accounts, and it seemed like maybe they just bit off a little more than they could chew, and they were like, "Whoa, we gotta slow this down here."
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I think kind of their, I guess, reasoning was that they hit that threshold and probably slightly more than what their current, construct of staffing, and everything could accommodate. And,
And they have to
it's,
generate these reports, right? These suspicious activity reports.
yeah.
Is the Can you provide us any clarity on sort of how that works?
Yeah. So it's, so I guess I could give like an example. I had, when I was a branch manager at a credit union, I had a gentleman come in with a lot of cash and wanted to deposit money in an account that I would say probably didn't traditionally have that kind of money in it. So that triggers funny,
Is it over
name,
10,000?
SARS.
That's the line, right? 10,000 for a
I think it's,
deposit.
so it's on a case, like, it would be on a case by case basis. So if
Oh,
you
okay.
look at an account, they've got compliance people behind the scenes that get, they set up kind of rules within their core systems that, if, that they say, hey, if a certain account spikes 1 month of, like, all of a sudden they're making large cash deposits where historically they hadn't made X amount in deposits. So it's more a trend.
Okay.
So, if there's a blip that throws the trend off, then it generates a SARS report, which is kind of
Okay.
funny with.
Yeah, SARS. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that's really kind of it. And I suspect building out that type of report in the cannabis industry, you have to do that from scratch, right? So there's no kind of baseline, and, trusting banking people to understand what kind of flows to expect and ebbs with cannabis is probably
Right. Especially if you're like an outdoor grower or something and you have a bank account, like in
right.
October, you're gonna see a spike, or
Yeah,
November when you finally offloaded all your product, right? So like
right.
there's got to be a way to set that up so that those kind of spikes for outdoor growers don't trigger that kind of warning.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, I mean, I think a lot of people are a lot of people in the banking world are anticipating, and maybe they've done their research, or maybe they're just making this general assumption that it requires so much more time and commitment to any individual cannabis business account versus your restaurant or your, but I mean, I've seen because of the cash influx, because of the compliance that they have to do on the back end, I understand it to a degree. I don't know that it's as extreme as maybe they're making it out to be. And again, that's just me making kind of an observation. I mean, I would get your liquor store owner come in with, the most difficult bills that you would run through a bill counting machine, and, making a cash deposit, 2 or 3 days a week of substantial amounts of money, and that would close down my teller lane for a long time so that we got it right and we were accurate and all of that. So I mean, I think they're making an assumption, and again, I would, I guess, say that there's probably people on the books who are equally as time consuming, or industries or verticals on the books
Sure.
that are equally as time consuming. So,
Yeah.
and then again, the compliance piece on the back end, I'm sure they have to do more, infrastructure wise to dot their I's and cross their T's on
And
that front.
the lowercase J's.
That's right. That's right. You know, those always get often omitted.
You know they do. It's people are always crossing T's and dotting I's, and the
Yeah.
Jays just got lost in the mix, really.
Yeah. What
So,
about the Jays?
well, Josh, that's all I got, man. I don't know if I've missed anything, but if you have any final notes you'd like to add, that's all I got. Thank you for your time again. I always leave my last word or the last word for my guests, so that's all you, buddy.
Yeah, no, I would say, I think more than anything, if you feel like you're not getting kind of the right, if after watching this interview you feel like you've been kind of maybe raked over the coals on your insurance, as a cannabis business, by all means reach out to me. I will tell you, I actually had a guy yesterday. I said, look, you've already been approved. I can't get you a quote in the time that you need it, until I saw the premium that he was offered. And I said, I'm going to do everything I can to get you a quote, and so that you're not buying this policy, and so I would just say, I'm going to do my best to, to make sure that you're not taken advantage of, to make sure that you feel like a legitimate business, because you are. And if you felt like any of those things have not been true throughout the process of getting insurance, give me a call and I'm happy to help you out. I'm happy to kind of navigate, and I'm happy to tell you if you're in a good spot. I at no at no cost to you. If I feel like you're in a good spot, I'll tell you. And hopefully there are more people in other verticals who pay as much attention about, the cannabis businesses as our agency does here.
Hmm. And he's got great hair. Josh MacDuff, Kinney Pike, One Digital. Thank you so much for your time. Mountain Girl Cannabis. Tell Anna I said hello. Sometime in the next couple weeks, I'm coming down there.
Things are looking pretty cool over here.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again for your time, and I best of luck to you in the coming months, Josh.
Thanks, Caleb. I appreciate it. Good
Take
hair for
care.
you.